It's the greatest show on earth, and you can't stop watching. No, not Thunder Thursday. I'm talking Russell Westbrook. You are watching Thunder Thursday. I'm your host, Assistant Sports Editor Darnell Mayberry, here with esteemed columnist Barry Trammell, Thunder beat writer Brett Dawson. Guys, Russell Westbrook did it again last night at Memphis. In Wednesday's 103-100 win over the Grizzlies, he delivered in the clutch. What do you make of his latest heroics, Brett?
9 rebounds. I don't know. Is it that great?
Shouldn't even count, right?
I don't know if we'd make that big a deal out of that, right? But he was great. 8 3-pointers, right? That's a
career high?
Career high for Russell Westbrook. He was fantastic in the clutch. They needed him. They had gotten off to a big lead, or they'd gotten a 10-point lead in the second half. Memphis came roaring back, made some threes themselves, got back in the game, and then Russell Westbrook just took over. Every night, it seems like he's making some kind of MVP case, and that was a pretty strong one.
I think David Fizdale, the Grizzly coach, has the quote of the year to this point when he said, we held him without a triple-double. Take that, Russell Westbrook. Westbrook was phenomenal, and he's becoming, apart from the triple-double stuff that we talk about all the time, he's becoming really good in the last 2 minutes of close games. And it's not something he's ever really done before, because up until this year, Kevin Durant was the last-minute guy. And Durant did a solid job, but nothing like what Westbrook is doing. Westbrook he's delivering game after game after game, and he's just elevating this storybook season that he's got. And when he doesn't have a triple double like last night, everybody's saying, the record tonight. He goes 45, 9, and 10 in a game in which they score 103 and win by 3. So. It's just it's an amazing thing to behold.
Brett, what's made him so special in the clutch this season?
Well, one, he's made some crazy shots. He's made some of those three-pointers that people have criticized him in the past for taking. He makes some of those. He's also made some really smart decisions in the clutch. Not just he is the greatest scorer in the NBA this season in clutch time in those close games, 5 points or less, 5 minutes or less in fourth quarters and overtimes. He's been the best scorer in the league. But he's also made some smart passes. He made one to Doug McDermott last night. He's a matured player, I think. He's still going to do some crazy things in the clutch. Some of these shots are ridiculous, but they're going in. But he seems to me to be a smarter, more poised player down the stretch than he's been in the past.
Barry, did you see this coming? Did you see this progressing?
Heck no.
Like you said, they always used to give the ball to Kevin Durant in these moments. Russell Westbrook rarely got the chance, but was there anything at all that you could point to and say, Russell Westbrook might be the guy to deliver in these situations?
Well, after Durant left, he had to be the guy that could he produce like this? I didn't see that. I had no reason to think that. I'm generally skeptical of people, NBA stars, even in the last minute of close games, because defense is batting down. They can get set up. The efficiency rate in the last minute of close games is not high. So for a guy to do this consistently is really amazing. I don't know if I believe in the clutch gene that we sometimes talk about. But if there is one of those, he's got it. What's clear about Russell Westbrook, though, is this. Whether how much you like him or don't like him, how much you revere this season or pick at it to point out where it might have some chinks in the armor, he's fearless as a basketball player. He literally fears nothing on the basketball court. And in the last 60 seconds of a tight NBA game, a little bit of fear can get you. And most guys have a little bit of fear. Russell has no fear.
You know what Greg Popovich said a week or so ago when they were here? He said a lot of guys will tell you they want to be the guy to take that shot. A lot of guys will say, I want it. And if the ball comes to them, they'll take it. He seeks it out, Popovich said. He's one of those rare guys in the NBA. He wants to be in that situation, and if he misses it, he moves on to the next one. He's not going to freak out about it. He doesn't care what we say. He doesn't care what fans say. He doesn't care what they're saying on ESPN. He's going to take that shot, and if he misses, he's fine. And if he makes it, he's a hero.
I think Barry hits the nail on the head when he said the fearlessness, because even when Kevin Durant was in town, Russell Westbrook, there were moments when Kevin Durant couldn't operate like he is accustomed to operating in fourth quarters. Russell Westbrook would be that guy, but that would generally be early in fourth quarters to about the 5-minute mark when Kevin Durant would take over. So we've seen Russell Westbrook do that at the start of fourth quarters, midway through fourth quarters, but now what we're seeing is the last 30 seconds of games, he's hitting these big shots. And I think it has to be that fearlessness, Brett.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he wants the ball, and Billy Donovan's talked about that too, that he relishes the moment. He wants to be in that moment. And the key thing about being in that moment is you can't be afraid for the moment to go the other way.
Yeah.
And you mentioned that pass to McDermott. I thought that was a very good sign, because the one criticism you can make of Russell in crunch time this year is sometimes he's tried to do it all himself and taken all the shots. And to find McDermott in a tie game with a minute left, an open McDermott for a go-ahead three, I thought that was a big moment.
Yeah. Guys, we cannot talk about Russell Westbrook without talking about his triple-double chase. A 41 the other night. He matches the record set by Oscar Robertson in 1961-62, 41 triple-doubles in the season. He did not quite get 42 to break the record and move into sole possession of first place against the Grizzlies, 1 rebound shy. Phoenix, do we expect him to get it Friday night in his next opportunity against the Suns?
I do expect him to get it. Phoenix has played a little bit closer with teams than I would expect them to. They're pretty much trying to tank at this point. They got a chance. It's a slim chance, but if they try really hard, they can get the worst record in the league. They're in the mix. They're playing Tyler Ulis a bunch of minutes, and it's kind of backfiring because he's playing well. But they're a team I think he can get it against. I think it's a team that if Oklahoma City goes in and really is focused on winning, they got a big leg up on Phoenix.
Phoenix plays pretty fast, up-tempo, a lot of rebounds available, and on the assist, not a lot of defense from the Suns. Should be a lot of stats for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm. Russell Westbrook's late season performances, guys. He had the Dallas Magic last Monday night at Dallas, the Orlando Magic against the Magic at Orlando last Wednesday. Had some clunkers against San Antonio and Charlotte, even though he did triple-double in both of those games. But then he does what he did against Memphis last night on Wednesday. Guys, what are these late season performances doing for his MVP chances?
Well, I saw yesterday where the great Calvin Watkins from ESPN, who I like a lot, has a story from the Houston Rockets saying they don't think this is close. They think James Harden is the MVP. Guess what? If you ask the Thunder, they're going to say the same thing about Russell Westbrook. I think the narrative is shifting just a little bit. I've seen a lot of people, NBA players. We saw Zach Randolph last night say, I wasn't sure, but it's Russell Westbrook. We've seen some other guys say that. Evan Fournier from Orlando said, I was kind of on the fence. I think now it's Westbrook. So
Jason Terry in Milwaukee.
Jason Terry said the same thing. All season, I think Jason Terry might have said that he was thinking maybe James Harden. One of those guys said, I was thinking James Harden all the way through. Now I'm starting to think Russ. And I think that's going to start to happen with voters as well. Whether that's enough, because I think a month ago a lot of people had decided James Harden was their MVP. Whether this is going to be enough to vault Russell Westbrook into the top of that, into the top of the voters' minds, I don't know. But I think that narrative is starting to shift. And I noticed that Vegas, or not Vegas, but offshore betting, they're saying he's the favorite now. Vegas is pretty smart.
Barry, Russell Westbrook has a week's worth of momentum with this triple-double chase of Oscar Robertson's hallowed record. The average that he's about to set, he's only 6 assists shy of averaging a triple-double for the season. Hasn't been done, of course, since 1961-62. What is this week-long momentum doing for Russell Westbrook's MVP chances?
Oh, I think it's impacting it greatly. I mean, I agree with Brett. I do sense the momentum building for Russell, and a lot of that is from just listening to too many ESPN talking heads. You can't always go by that, but I do sense this idea that twice in the last 9 days, the Thunder has won games in which Westbrook has posted a triple-double, which means a good all-around game, and either scored half their points or close to half their points. I mean, he had 57 the Orlando game. They scored 114 and needed virtually all of them. They won in overtime. Last night, Wednesday night in Memphis, he scores 45 of 103, has 9 rebounds, 10 assists. So the truth of the matter is he's doing an incredible amount, and people sort of realizing that there's more to this than just the triple-doubles. It's funny how a scoring champion his points can get lost. But I think that's happened with Russell Westbrook. He's going to win the scoring title. Forget the assists and rebounds. He's going to be the leading scorer in the NBA this year. And he's averaging a triple-double, or he's averaging double digits in rebounds and assists, and he's on a team that needs him to do all of that stuff. So I tend to think right now that Russ might win it.
We talk about triple-doubles. It's been 44 years since anybody averaged 30 points and 10 assists. It's been 27 years since anybody averaged 30 points and 10 rebounds. That was Karl Malone. it's been a really long time since anybody's done either one of those two things. He's doing both those things. It's an insane statistical year. Every day you can find some crazy numbers about it.
Guys, I sit at my desk every morning and I sit here and watch the networks, ESPN, Fox Sports 1, all of these channels, and it seems like every show with these talking heads that come on, they start the show by asking, if the season ended today, who would you vote for? I always ask you guys that. I'm going to start with you, Brett, and then I'm going to come to you, Barry, because the other day you said something I'm curious about. Brett, if the season ended today, who would you vote for?
I've been on the Westbrook side of the fence for quite a while, and the last week or so has only solidified that for me. So if I had a vote, and I don't, but if I had a vote, it would go to Russell Westbrook.
And because?
I think because if you look at what Houston is, if you look at the playmakers around James Harden, I think Westbrook is elevating more people. He's elevating a worse team. He hasn't elevated into the same position that Harden has Houston, but Westbrook is carrying a team that around him doesn't do a lot of things that are tailored to help him. He doesn't have a ton of shooters that would help the way James Harden does. I think what he's done in terms of just delivering wins, I think he's contributed to more wins than anybody, maybe other than LeBron James. I mean, LeBron is probably in that conversation as well. There was a great story yesterday with a lot of Pythagorean win percentage. I didn't understand the math, but what it basically said is it took a lot of factors into account. It said if you look at what the Rockets are with James Harden, they're about a 50. They play like about a 57-win team with him on the floor, and about a 51-win team with him off. Westbrook and the Thunder, they're playing at about a 55-win pace, something in that range, in the mid-50s, and they play when he's off the floor like a 19-win team. To me, that's an MVP.
Barry, I'm coming to you, and what I want to follow up with you about is on the podcast that we did earlier this week. I believe you said if you had to vote that day, it would have been James Harden that you would have voted for. You don't have a vote. That's worth noting. But if it ended today, who would you vote for?
Well, I don't know what I said on the podcast, but if I said James Harden, that's a mistake because I should, and anybody that, if I don't do it, people have permission to hit me in the head with a frying pan if I don't vote for LeBron James because he's the MVP this year and every season for the previous 10, 12. But if you're talking about a Harden-Westbrook matchup, to me, it just goes back and forth. Literally, last week after the Dallas-Miami deal, I said, I think it might be Westbrook or Dallas-Orlando. Might be Westbrook. Earlier this week, had the rash of turnovers, and the Thunder look like it's going to go to 7th if it moves anywhere, not 5th. And you think, maybe it's Harden. Now Russell has another one of these monster games that just remind you how special he is. I'd probably lean back toward Westbrook. But, like I said, LeBron James is the most valuable player. Cleveland, you talk about those theories. I mean, Cleveland without LeBron's in the same boat, and they've got some players. But he is so valuable that he just lifts that boat. And the difference in my mind with LeBron and Harden and Westbrook, LeBron is still a difference maker on the defensive end. And that's my one wish for Westbrook going forward, is for the Thunder to find a way to give him some relief on the offensive end so that he can focus more of his effort, energy, and focus on the defensive end.
Barry, it's been a long, long time since a team that finished outside of the top 3 had an MVP winner. How do you think voters will reconcile voting for Russell Westbrook, even if his team finishes 6th or no higher than 5th?
I think the triple-double will trump that. I think that does drop Westbrook significantly down. Then I think the triple-double brings it back because I think people will study that and go back to what you keep saying. 1962. It's been 55 years. Billy Donovan made a great point the other day. People talk. People all over the country about writing about why this is possible and why it's happening, and they have very good points. But Billy made a great point the other day. He said, if it was that easy, more people would be doing it. And it's not just that nobody's done it or doing it outside of Westbrook. Nobody's really getting close. Now, you can say Harden's getting close this year. He's 2 rebounds shy. But it's a statistical marvel to do this. In a lot of ways, it's like when McGuire and Sosa had the home run derby, when O.J. went for 2,000 yards back in the 70s. It's just something you just didn't think you could ever see.
Brett, we didn't think we were going to see it, but now that we're seeing it, despite his team being 6th, Do you think that's going to hamper Russell Westbrook's chances at all?
The sixth will hamper it because if they were third, he'd have it sewn up. I mean, I think that would be a done deal. If he were averaging, even if they were fourth, if they were a couple of games off from Houston's win pace, and he were averaging a triple-double and leading the league in scoring, I think there'd be no question. So now there's a question. I think some people, I don't know how voters are going to vote. There's fewer voters. They've cut out some team employees. We don't know exactly what the voting pool is going to look like. I do think there's one thing I'm pretty confident about. If he doesn't win, no matter how many wins they end up with, in 10 years, if nobody's averaged a triple-double yet, again, people are going to look back at this season and say, how in the world did he not win MVP? Because everybody likes to say, oh, like, you know, the year Oscar Robertson got it, he didn't win the MVP, so Russell Westbrook doesn't have to win the MVP. Well, sure, if somebody's averaging 50 and 20, we'll give it to him. And if somebody's averaging 20 and 20 and is, you know, the greatest winner of all time, like Bill Russell, maybe he wins it. Those guys could finish above him. But there's nobody like that. There's nobody comparable. What Westbrook is doing is statistically spectacular. It's better than Harden. I know people say it's only a couple of rebounds and Harden averages more assists. But if you look at the rebounding thing, everybody picks on Westbrook's uncontested rebounds. Harden gets all his rebounds the same way, and he gets fewer of them. So to me, it's such a spectacular statistical season. It is the season that people will look back historically if he doesn't win and say, wow, how did that guy not win? I don't think that applies to the other guys.
Guys, some chatter that I'm hearing, a question that I'm hearing, is whether or not this is a one-season thing. Do you think Russell Westbrook will be able to do this again next year if he comes back and, you know, obviously, God willing, has his health? Do you think he could be able to average a triple-double again next season?
I think one question is, does he want to? Does he want to put forth the effort to do it? It's hard. To me, I think after the game against Milwaukee, when he tied the record, he was for Russell Westbrook, it was pure joy. I mean, that was as sort of emotional as he's been about anything all season. Probably from what people tell me, about as emotional as he's ever been, and just talking to the media and addressing fans a little bit and waving to the fans afterward, the way he touched his heart, that kind of thing. He doesn't do a whole lot of that stuff. I think some of that too is relief. I think it's a release that he's gotten to this point. He's comfortably now going to get the average. He's probably going to get the overall record. I don't know if he's going to want to do this again. Maybe he will. Maybe he'll set out to do it again. I'm not sure that he'll go as all out to get it. And I think the ideal situation for the Thunder is they come back with a little bit better roster that doesn't require him to do quite as much.
Barry, he knows the formula now. He knows how to do it.
He does. I'm with Brett. The ideal situation is the roster's improved. Maybe a better backup point guard so he doesn't have to play as many minutes on the ball, going all out. And maybe the focus and effort that it takes to get a triple-double, some of that could be transferred over to defense. He can still be an all-league player, still be an MVP candidate, and the Thunder's going to be a better team.
All right. I think it's safe to move on from Russell Westbrook now. I don't know. Is it?
Why not?
Good? Okay.
No, let's talk.
You could do everything about Russell Westbrook
Yeah.
all the time, but we should talk about other things.
Let's talk about Steven Adams. What does Steven Adams think about Russell Westbrook?
They might have a new video dropping today for all we know. But you're watching Thunder Thursday at newsok.com. I'm Darnell Mayberry, joined by Barry Trammell and Brett Dawson. Alex Abrinas did not travel with the Thunder on this road trip. At least he didn't go to Memphis. He might join them on the last legs of the road trip. He had a left knee sprain, suffered in the Milwaukee game. Brett, what's the update on him and what's the prognosis going forward?
Well, we don't have much of an update other than that he hasn't joined the team yet, but the team just got to Phoenix last night, so we don't know exactly what the situation is going to be with him traveling. My guess is, Billy Donovan said immediately before he got the MRI that they were confident it wasn't serious. He was in the locker room. He was talking to his teammates. He had a little bit of a limp after that Milwaukee game, but he wasn't separated from anybody. They hadn't taken him off. They hadn't rushed him to get the MRI. He seemed in pretty good spirits. His teammates were talking to him. You can't read too much into that. That's not medical experience speaking. It's just people's interactions. But I think, I don't think they think this is a long-term thing. Now, that said, they've only got 4 regular season games left. So, I mean, he could miss the whole season and have it not be real severe. So I think it's hard to say yet exactly what the long-term prognosis is.
Barry, this is a guy who, before the deadline trade of Anthony Morrow and some other guys, Cameron Payne, Joffrey Laverne to Chicago, he was playing minutes over Anthony Morrow. He's now playing minutes over Doug McDermott. He wasn't playing all that well, but he was picking it up. He picked it up in that Milwaukee game before going down with this injury. How much of a concern should this be that their best shooter is, maybe not statistically, but just pure shooter, is now on the
Well, they'll miss him. I mean, they'll miss him last night. Well, they missed him in Memphis. Doug McDermott played 32 minutes. And while Abrinas is no defensive whiz at all, he's better than McDermott. So you're more comfortable with him on the defensive end, and he's proven to be a big-time shooter. I mean, who knows where he'll finish up on it, but you can tell Alex Abrinas is a shooter, and so he's a rookie. He's an older rookie, 23, been in Europe, but this is a guy you want him to get as much experience as possible, particularly playoff experience. You want Alex Abrinas then for two reasons: one, help you try to win a playoff series; two, get some of that playoff experience for the future.
Brett, they need him to space the floor for Russell Westbrook.
They do. McDermott did a good job of that last night, and they can use McDermott in some of those minutes. But Abrinas is really good, and he's also shown when he shoots the ball well, and this is the mark of a young player. When he's shooting it well, he's not bad defensively. He's engaged. He also puts it on the floor a little when people come at him. He prefers, obviously, to spot up or pull up. That's his game. But I think he's a very important piece. The other thing, and this is not to sound any alarm bells or anything, we don't have any update on Andre Robertson. That's more concerning if you had anybody who was going to miss some time. You really don't want Andre Robertson. They sat in the second half with knee soreness. That sounds precautionary, but we don't know much about what has caused that or anything. So that's something you definitely want to keep an eye on as well.
Barry, this isn't Alex Abrinas' first nick or knack. He seems to be a guy who, for whatever reason, finds the injury bug. Are you concerned that he might be injury prone?
I'm not. There were several incidences in Europe where he missed some time, and then he had a couple of stretches this year. But I'm not going to say that yet. I'll give him some time.
Okay, Brett, you mentioned Doug McDermott. He had one of his better games in a Thunder uniform Wednesday night against Memphis. What was working for him, and how much more can we expect him to provide?
Well, I think one thing, as Barry mentioned, was minutes. I mean, he got an opportunity, so he got to play, and I think a lot of guys Abrinas is the same way. Shooters, rhythm helps. So just being able to play, I think some prolonged stretches help. The other thing is, frankly, he got to play some minutes with Russell Westbrook, and we talked about Westbrook finding him for that big shot late in the game. Playing with Westbrook helps a shooter, any shooter. You're going to be better. Look at Victor Oladipo's on-off numbers. Look at how much better a shooter he is when he plays with Russell Westbrook than he is the rest of the time and than he's ever been in his career. So those guys get a lot of looks. Memphis is also a team, if you look at them, not super explosive on the wing. Who's the guy on the wing that really terrorizes you? They don't really have that guy, and so you can kind of play McDermott defensively and get away with it. I don't think that's the kind of game that's indicative of what he can give you consistently, but the shooting is important. If they can get that out of him with some regularity, especially while Abrinas is out, that's very, very important to them because they do need as much space as they can. How
important are these last 4 games for Doug McDermott in terms of integrating him back into that rotation, maybe getting him ready for the playoffs so that he can be a weapon when the Thunder hits the postseason?
Well, I think it's really important. When they made that trade, the easy thing to do is focus on Taj Gibson because he's a more experienced player. He's made playoff runs with the Bulls. He's really good, and we've seen how good he is. He's helped their starting lineup. They're better than they were with Domantas Sabonis with him starting. But he's not necessarily the long-term piece in that trade. He's a free agent. We don't know what he's going to demand, what kind of price he's going to command out on the open market. Doug McDermott, I think, is a guy they view as a long-term piece here. He's a guy they view having to complement Russell Westbrook as a shooter. So that's a guy who I think to this point probably hasn't looked like a guy who you say we're going to have him building, we're going to build around. He's going to be part of what we build with going forward. We're not going to build around him, but he's going to be a piece going forward. He hasn't played that way yet. So you see some flashes of it here and there. I think over this last stretch, particularly if Abrinas isn't playing and he gets some more minutes, you'd like to see some more of that stuff.
Yeah. Okay, guys, let's wrap it up with this. Some playoff talk. The Thunder currently sits 2.5 games out of 5th, 3 games out of 4th, behind Utah and the Clippers, respectively. Barry, what are the chances they creep into that 4th spot?
Pretty slim. For the Thunder to win out, you'd need collapses by both Utah and the Clippers. Not likely, especially the Clips have a very easy schedule remaining. I guess it's possible they could catch Utah. Utah's got a difficult schedule, but the magic number is really 2. Any combination of 2 Utah wins or Thunder losses means the Thunder can't catch the Jazz. That's going to be difficult. You basically need the Thunder to win out and Utah to struggle down the stretch. And anything's possible, but not likely.
Brett, you see the 4th seed or 5th seed?
Maybe they could get to the 5. Both those teams, the Clippers and the Jazz, have some difficult games. The Clippers in particular, but you don't know. The Clippers play the Spurs. You don't know what the Spurs are going to be. So it's hard to say that they could make a leap. The thing about, I think the key thing is, one, until last night, the most interesting thing was could they possibly fall to 7? Because Memphis had won that game. You get to within 1.5. Now that ship has sailed on Memphis. But I think the thing about the Thunder trying to make a move, they're not a good enough road team for us to feel confident they're going to go on the road and take care of business and win out. And they would still need some help from the other teams losing. But you got to go out and win some games on the road. And they've lost a game in Phoenix. You know, they play a Denver team that's going to be able to score a lot of points. So we have to have faith that they're going to go out and win out here on the road in order for them to make a move, and I'm not confident that they will do that.
The Clippers have a sort of a tougher schedule. The Thunder has an easier schedule.
Yep.
But those road games, like you said, this Thunder team has not been very good on the road.
They've lost to Minnesota. And Minnesota's a team we saw it last year, we're seeing it this year. They play hard all the way to the end. They want to win at the end of the season. So they've got tough games, relatively speaking, because they're not at home.
The Clippers go to San Antonio on Saturday, at home against Houston on Monday, and then in Sacramento Wednesday. If the Clippers do falter in those last 3 games and the Thunder has a chance to move up, the sexier matchup from a fan standpoint is Thunder Rockets. But would you prefer, if you're the Thunder or a Thunder fan, to face Utah in that 4-5 matchup as opposed to Houston in that 3-6?
I think Thunder would like to avoid the Rockets compared to anybody virtually, including San Antonio. The Thunder, to match up with the Rockets, the Thunder has to play Jeremy Grant and Andre Robertson together. And when you do that, you don't have enough offense. So it's not a good matchup. The Thunder can't play 2 of their bigs together against Houston very much, which is when Thunder's at its best. Adams and Cantor, Adams and Gibson, Gibson and Cantor. You gotta go small. Billy hadn't done that much this year. I don't think he wants to, but you have to against the Rockets. I think they'd much rather play Utah or the Clippers or even San Antonio. 2
quick things, Barry. One, Billy Donovan did a lot of things in the playoffs last year that he didn't really show us much in the regular season.
That's true.
He could do that again this year. And 2, I vaguely remember you saying Jeremy Grant should be potentially a starter earlier this season. What happened? What changed?
Well, I mean, I like Jeremy Grant a lot, and he needs to play more, and he's going to have to play more. But when you play Grant and Robertson together, you can defend the Rockets to some degree, but your offense is just so limited with 2 really suspect offensive players. Grant can shoot pretty, okay. Robertson can't. Robertson can go to the basket, run the floor, those kinds of things. But just in terms of running an offense, it's going to get real clunky with Grant and Robertson together.
Brett, when we sit down here at this same table next week, we're going to know probably for sure what the matchups will be. But just as a preview, I think the Thunder are 3-1 against Utah, is that correct? And 1-3 against Houston.
Yep.
What's the difference in those matchups? Obviously, the Rockets 3-point shooting. What else?
Well, yeah, I mean, the Rockets are so good offensively. That's part of the thing. And those games have been very close with the Rockets, other than the last one in Houston. But I think the Lou Williams addition gives the Rockets just even another element of offense. They're just so good scoring. Now they're better scoring off the bench, so that second unit can create some distance. There's a lot of matchup trouble there. I think with Utah, look, I like Rudy Gobert. I like Gordon Hayward. Those guys haven't been in the playoffs. They haven't been in these situations. I think that's Oklahoma City's big advantage if they get into that situation. They've got a lot of young guys, too. This is a team that hasn't been together as a team, but you've got a Russell Westbrook. You've got a Steven Adams. You've got Enes Kanter, even, guys who were on a team that made a deep run last year. So I think they have that experience. It's not an easy series with Utah either. Remember that the last time they beat Utah, Rudy Gobert didn't play, and that changes the game completely. But I would have more faith that they can go on the road and win a game at Utah than I would that they could go on the road and win a game at Houston, certainly.
All right. Thanks, guys. And thank you for watching. For the best Thunder coverage anywhere, stay right here at newsok.com. And make sure to read us every day in the Oklahoman.